Welcome to Silicon Dragon Talk. My name is Rebecca Fannin. I'm the host of our show. Today we're going to be talking about the bot, or buying. The bot is Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and they're buying into U.S. tech startups at big dollar amounts and really many deals over the past few years. So we're going to be talking about the trend today with three expert guests. And I'd like to introduce them now. Brad Bao. He's here from Fosun, Kinzon Capital. This is the big Chinese conglomerate's venture capital unit. So Brad, thank you for being here and welcome to the show. Good, thank you. And next is Hany from GGB Capital. It's one of the leading U.S.-China venture capital groups investing in both markets. So Hany, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, Yong, who's here from SVTech. SVTech is working with Lenovo and Legend and Xiaomi on investments. And Yong previously ran Baidu's strategic investments and also the seed investment fund for Lenovo. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about this big trend of the bot buying into U.S. startups, and why do these Chinese companies want to buy into U.S. tech startups? Brad, what do you think? Why are they doing this?
Yeah, I think they are, from my experience in the last decade, also looking at cross-border investments and also running the Tencent U.S. branch. That my interpretation and also my experience is that the three things matters. The one is technology. That Silicon Valley still leads all the innovation trends in the world. Mm-hmm. And second part is the market. That the China economy has been growing really fast in the last decade or two. But meanwhile, that the home domestic market is getting a little bit saturated, so they're looking for expansions. And the third part is very interesting, but may not as obvious, is talents. That is the ability to not only acquire talent through investments, but also the abilities to attract, with the investments, to attract more talents and get the awareness of it.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting that the Chinese would be investing here for talent when there's such a huge talent pool in China.
Yeah, it's just a different type of it. And what I personally believe is technology innovations and also globalization. Those are the two driving forces.
Okay.
For the world, and those are the things that diversification of talents and expertise, experience, everything will come together.
Right. So is this a way for the U.S., for the Chinese companies to enter the U.S. market and to compete with U.S. companies like Amazon and other companies here as well, Google, Facebook? Is this a way for them to get in?
Definitely. I mean, I think a lot of this is in military terms. They're just trying to figure out the soft spots. They're trying to figure out if it's e-commerce or gaming or digital media or search, where can they enter the market to have the biggest impact? Obviously, the world is flat. It's very global in nature, especially because of the mobile devices. It's the same thesis that when we started GGB Capital in 2000s, like we wanted to invest in where the innovation was, and it was primarily in the U.S. and in China. And for the longest time, it was U.S. companies trying to go into China. Many of them failed because of the Galapagos Island effect of China. But now you're starting to see the Chinese companies trying to look for growth internationally. And U.S., be it number one or number two markets behind China, it is a very big global market. And so they're the bats, and I'm surrounded by a B and a T over here.
You certainly are.
Which makes me an A, which I don't want to say. Exactly. But I think there's global aspirations, and they know what they don't know. And so they're looking for talent, as Brad was saying, to try to figure out what's the best way to enter into the U.S., into the global markets. And many of them are trying out, and they're making mistakes, but by and large, they're pot committed. They're going to come in here pretty heavy and quickly, and it's gonna scare a lot of the incumbents in the U.S. I think, if you take a look at some of the U.S. companies who were quote unquote lazy, I don't think they're lazy anymore. I think now they're scared.
So what kind of companies should be scared then? And any examples, and in what particular markets are the Chinese really good at, really competitive at?
So I think that the Chinese companies, one of the things that I truly think that they're innovators on is monetization strategies, user retention strategies, kind of the consumer-facing aspect of it, because China is really difficult to do that. And so companies in the gaming sector, companies in the e-commerce sector, companies in the digital media sectors in general, I think, should be scared. Retail, for example, I think retail across the food chain, whether it's an offline retail store or a department store or shopping mall, all the way to Amazon, should be a little bit nervous about Alibaba trying to come in here. And they're going to make mistakes, but they're going to come in here, and it's going to be a big investment, and they're not short-term. They have patience. So all those companies should be nervous. That's one example.
Right. So GGB was a major investor in Alibaba. So you're talking about all these investments that Alibaba has made in the U.S. But Alibaba is not the only one that's here, too. You mentioned Baidu. And Yong, you were heading up Baidu's strategic investments here in the U.S. And what kinds of things is Baidu looking for here in the U.S. market?
Yeah, actually, Baidu, just like other Chinese IT companies, we're actually looking for technology innovation, especially actually people are talking about open innovation a lot today, because the Chinese companies realize that it's very hard for them to just leverage in-house R&D team to win the competition, especially on the global market. So that's why Chinese companies are going out to here, maybe to Israel, and to work with and maybe invest in some tech startups. Sometimes it's acquisition for market share, or sometimes it's acquisition for technology and talents. Mm-hmm. So Baidu is more on the acquire or technology acquisition side. And also, we do early stage equity investment too, to start to work with tech startups from a very early stage and to build up our collaboration or partnership to do this job.
Okay. So what about Xiaomi? Are they also going to be investing here in the U.S.?
I think Xiaomi started to realize that they should not only invest in Chinese, local companies in China, but also started to look at all the innovation happening around the world. Mm-hmm. So far, Xiaomi doesn't have a dedicated office here in the Valley, so they leverage their partners like us to do the innovation sourcing for them. Oh. So we work together. We look at potential with startups with great potential, and then we bring them back to our partners like Xiaomi, like Lenovo, and we work together to see if their technology can be fitted in the big corporations' product lines or market, mm-hmm. and then we decide to maybe we'll go work with them or invest in them.
I see. You also have worked with Lenovo on
right.
seed investments here in the U.S., and you mentioned that Lenovo has made a lot of investments in the
right.
U.S.
Actually, on U.S., Lenovo did a lot of acquisition for market share, including Moto, IBM PC server, just closed the deal last month, and some early stage startups too, but they're not very early stage. They're kind of Series B or C, right. As a strategic investor, Lenovo invests in them. Yeah. It's kind of hard for a large corporation to acquire a very early stage tech startup, because you have to justify such investment or acquisition inside this corporate organization. Sometimes it's hard to persuade the senior executives to do so. So the successful deals we have done with Lenovo and Baidu too are majorly growth stage or relatively mature tech startups.
Yeah. All right. So I think we've been looking at Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, Fosun, Lenovo, many of these Chinese companies that are buying up into the U.S. So I wanted to also show a slide of which tallies up a number of these investments. So let's look at this slide very quickly here. You can see that Alibaba has probably been the most active, right? Mm-hmm. At least publicly, anyhow. Alibaba's done. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, more than a handful of deals here, including app search engine Quixi, luxury e-commerce site, mobile messaging app Tango, ride-sharing company Lyft, remote control app Peel, mobile gaming startup Kabam, and then finally subscription service Shop Runner. And the interesting thing is that all of these deals have been in the past year. So it's an amazing number of deals. And of course Tencent, if you go back a couple years, Tencent has made very hefty investments in U.S. Gaming companies. The Riot Game deal, $400 million, the Epic Game deal, $400 million. Renren, the Facebook of China, invested into a college lending service called Social Finance. Baidu here a couple of times, with a mobile safety firm, Trustco, and also a mapping company, Indoor Atlas. And then finally, just recently, China investors have made big news by buying into landmark real estate. The Waldorf-Astoria is being sold for $1.95 billion to a Chinese insurance company. And Fosun bought into Chase Morgan Plaza for $735 million. Is this kind of a repeat of the Japanese investment in the U.S. of going into Pebble Beach and Rockefeller Center? I mean, is this going to get out of hand, or what do you think is the prospect? Where is this going? Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I'll get started on that. My role in the last decade or more than a decade or so is focusing on globalizations, and also I've been very closely working with companies and firms from China. And one of the things I did actually is to study the history and see what happened in the past, use that as a mirror to see what's going on and what's happening.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it looks really similar when you look at back, what happened to Japan. Back in the 70s and 80s, right? The money flew out and they started to acquire a lot of real estate and heavy investments, and together with Toyota or Honda getting very successful globally, Sony, all the companies together. I think on the surface looks relatively same, but the few differences I would see. First of all, is I agree that the investment will keep on going strong, and also probably growing over time as well, and also much more diversified as we see today. That into tech company, real estate, insurance companies, high-end brands, and all that stuff. And the other part of it, however, that is my personal observation, interpretation. First of all, is relatively, I won't speak for all of them, but relatively rational when these acquisitions and investments are made, rather than say, I have a lot of money, I just need to put it outside.
Yeah.
And the other part, I think not necessarily applies to Kinzon Capital, but applies to many other investment funds that are more or less strategic oriented. Mm-hmm. So meaning that not only that they're buying a piece of asset or technology or a team, but also that how this could be contribute to their main business, and how their main business could be supporting the company, like what Tencent did with Riot Games and many other investments we did. Yeah. So it's more heavily integrated instead of a standalone. Okay. And this all together, plus I think the whole market growth still strong. So I would say you will not be repeating the history, but there are a few bubbles here and there that do get us a little bit nervous.
Sure. So not so much of a showcase deal then, but Hany, I mean strategically.
There's two types of deals. There's types of deals you do for ego, and there's types of deals that you do for money, for investment, right? Uh-huh. Some of the deals that you see, especially on the real estate side, are definitely ego, brand-centric investments.
Yeah.
And it's from the perspective of the investor, it's very easy to go invest in a high brand in another geography because it's safe. Everybody knows that brand, so it's a safe investment. When I go tell my boss and the boss's boss we're investing in the Waldorf-Astoria, they're going to know exactly what it is.
Yeah,
versus
they
saying,
know.
I'm going to invest in the hotel in Santa Clara. They're not going to know who that is.
Right.
So it's a fairly easy investment to make, and it's also good at cocktail parties, right? We just invested in the
we own the Waldorf-Astoria.
Yeah, exactly. But we focus on the tech side, and if you take a look at the investments by the Chinese companies or foreign companies coming to us in the tech companies, they're not ego investments. They are brand name investments because many of the companies they're investing in, because they have access to these companies, are brand name companies. But there's loose connection in that most of them are focused around consumer technology and enabling technology that you can learn from. Some you can bring directly into China, and others you can learn from and bring that knowledge back to the Chinese in your Chinese operation. So those to me are pretty legitimate bets. Some of them may seem haphazard, but if you take a look at in totality, what they're trying to do is they're trying to learn about our market. And it's part of the tuition, if you will, to learn from the American companies.
So most of them are minority stakes.
Yes.
And smaller deals, at least in Alibaba's case.
Smaller minority investments, that's correct.
Right. So, and they're in all kinds of areas that would seemingly not be related to e-commerce. So why is that?
Well, I mean, the investment in Quixi, for example, it's actually both a strategic weapon against some of the search technology that's going to evolve in mobile. Mobile search is going to be very different than internet search, and so because how do you search inside an app? Quixi helps solve that problem. How do I access the information and data inside an app to expose that to a user that's looking for the best women's dress? There's probably 10 apps out there that have women's dresses. How do I find that inside the app?
So it has applications for shopping.
It definitely does. And that's a technology they can easily bring back to their core business in China to compete with the likes of Baidu.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
So the major difference I see for the Chinese companies' acquisition or investment here is that most of them are seeking strategic synergy, not only asset investment. They bought some companies or they invest in some companies and they bring their technology back either to China or they acquire some channels and then sell their own products through the U.S. channels to the U.S. consumers. So I think they are seeking strategic synergy. That's a big difference.
Okay, so you mentioned that they're actually buying into these companies as a tuition, right? So isn't that kind of a scary concept that some of our best ideas in the U.S. are going to be copied in China? Like they were in the first era of the internet era, that Facebook was copied, Google was copied, Amazon was copied. Is this going to happen again now?
I was joking with Brad just before the taping of the show in that there's a lot that U.S. companies copied from China as well. If you think about,
like what?
Well, some of the user interface design, which we used to laugh at in the early 2000s, are being replicated by U.S. companies today that were based on some Chinese designs, like the endless scrolling of a page, a lot of information. That's one aspect. The monetization strategies of game companies have all been copied from Asia, and the Chinese have perfected them. We're copying them here. So copying is I think is the best form of flattery, right? It's like they're doing something well. Let's figure out how they're doing it and adapt it to our local market and be successful. Companies that simply copy what's going on in the U.S. and bring it back to China typically fail. There's a lot of localization, a lot of cultural knowledge, know-how that needs to happen in these applications or games, what have you, media, that needs to make sense for China, and vice versa. You can't just simply copy from one geography to the other. That doesn't work. It's been proven many times. Think about the copying of Facebook into China really hasn't worked that well.
Right.
But applications like YY and applications like WeChat work extremely well. Those were tailored for the market, maybe with the idea of Facebook in the beginning, but they've obviously evolved in something very, very different.
Okay. So why are the U.S. tech companies taking the capital from the Chinese tech titans? Why are they taking the money? I mean, why don't they just take venture capital investment instead, like they always have? Why are they turning to Chinese tech titans
For
now?
example, for the mobile market, China has the largest mobile market in the world. So other mobile startups thinking about, maybe not today, but eventually we'll go to Chinese market to win the consumers there. And we need some strong partners. Maybe we better start to work with them from today. And then we build up our relationships. We get to know China market. We know how to form a China strategy, and then how we go to China. So I think that's one major reason.
So it gives them a real advantage in entering the Chinese market then, is to have this China partner.
Exactly.
Or China investor.
Yeah, not only money, but the strategic resources behind the money.
Right. Yeah, I think you got a really good point on that, and that's my experience as well when I was representing Tencent here. I think it's very interesting, maybe a little bit controversial as well. The first number one reason is the market. China is already the second largest economy and also market, together with the internet. The whole internet economy is even bigger, relatively compared to the overall economy growth of China. But meanwhile, there are a few other things. When I was at Tencent, many of the companies willing to talk to us and have our invest in them, and ask us to buy more shares. Is they can get into Tencent's technology and innovations and learn from us.
Oh, really?
So that was the main reason that many companies willing to work with us. Okay, why don't you buy more shares of us so you can really put some hands on my project and help me out, figure out the technology and internet innovations.
So how hands-on are they to these U.S. tech companies? Are they
very?
Really?
Yeah.
Talking to them every day, every month, every week?
Even more so.
Really?
Oftentimes they'll have teams sitting in the office.
in there.
Really?
Yeah. So I won't speak to some of the details of that, but if you ask like Riot Game, for example, it's #1 MMO in the world. We invested in them back in early in 2008 when I visited them. They were like less than 20 people, only has a vertical slide, and no monetizations or that. The game was literally redone. That in terms of the art, in terms of the design, they did really well on the balancing, understand the culture, create a phenomenal game. When it comes to monetizations operations, it's all tense about it. And the whole backend got rewritten by us. So that's one piece of it. And together with that, and I think many of the companies right now, it's vice versa, right? The company in China is, okay, we have to get into the US market in order to further grow. Versus like the companies in the US, if you ask pretty much every single company, they will say, okay, we'll establish in the US and we will conquer the China market. So regardless of what stage they are at, maybe they're ready, maybe they're not, but that is in their plan, like, sooner or later. So, okay, they wanted to get the knowledge about the markets, or get, some of the leverage and supports in terms of, policy supports, market capitals, distributions, and even, talents. The same story happens back and forth, so it's very interesting.
Any mistakes on either side in either accepting the money or investing the money? Have you seen any big blow-ups that were really, either side wishes they wouldn't have done that?
I'm certain that there will be many. A lot of people sit back on the couch today and say, "Oh, that was a bad investment." That was a bad investment. It's really too early to tell. I think there's some examples of investments that weren't necessarily the best investments, but I think, again, this is part of the tuition. You make mistakes along the way.
Right.
And as long as you're patient and long term, the winners will way outweigh the losers.
Right.
Okay.
The most difficult part for merger acquisition is not about negotiating the deals, but the post-merger integration. So that's the most difficult part, and many companies failed at that stage. Many acquisitions failed.
Yeah.
So I won't name any startups. But we definitely see a lot happen.
Yeah. What's the secret to getting that right?
It's very hard. Actually, the success rate, I think, even for Google, the biggest company, IT company here, they made maybe 50% of their acquisition deals are successful. I'm not sure, but should not be more than 6%. I think it's very hard.
These U.S. tech startups that are taking the China money, is this going to be a negative for them when they plan to go public? Is this going to be a negative with the public's perception that there's China money behind it?
I would say not. I think what I've been experiencing, actually, a lot of them, even right now, since we represent Kinzon Capital as a venture capital, but also Fosun Group as a really big investment group, right? We got approached a lot of like pre-IPOs and very late stage companies that they come to us say, we want a Chinese investor that completes our story. The story is where they go and expand. So
the first question as an investor, a public market investor, is how are you going to expand internationally? And more importantly, how do you get into China? And if you haven't answered that, it's like, hey, we have an investor that's really supportive and is going to help us gain access to China. Even the hope of that alone is going to be worth 3 or 4 points of multiple on the IPO.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being here today, and thanks for your viewpoints on our show, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
We good?